The snow had stopped falling. Erskine rubbed his eyes and stared straight ahead at the sodden fields fading into the twilight. He decided it was a good time to stop. He signalled his two companions to leave the road and turned into a nearby hollow. Nerys threw off her backpack, took out blankets and provisions. Ossian struck a fire. Erskine let go of the sledge rope, sat down and began massaging his hands. "I'll help you in a moment," he said. Nerys eyed the man lying on the sledge. "You better rest while you can." "Fucking sergeant," Ossian said, blowing on his fingers. "Did he need to stuff himself so much? If he were lighter, we would have crossed the inn already." "Such luck," said Nerys. Erskine hunched over the bandaged sergeant and listened to his shallow breaths. "We're stuck with each other," he said. "I'll take first watch." The stolen wine tasted of ginger. Erskine grimaced, wrapped the blanket around his shoulders, and looked at his sleeping companions. Ossian could very well be his son. He enlisted in the Temerian army shortly before the invasion of the Black Ones. They fought together for Dillinger under Jan Natalis, then with King Foltest when they liberated Sodden. Nerys, a condottiere of the Free Company, claimed to be the daughter of a Lyrian baron. Erskine was sure she was lying, because if she had been, he couldn't imagine she would end up here, freezing half to death on this crazy journey of theirs. Ah, the journey. Erskine sighed and took a sip of wine. It started with the sergeant and his story about a chest in a debris-strewn basement. Then came the decision they all made together, the path from which there was no return. The warmth of the fire called to Erskine, inviting him to sleep. He yawned, stood up, and nudged Nerys with the toe of his boot. "Your watch," he said, and handed her the bottle. Nerys rubbed her eyes, took a sip, and spat into the flames. He was about to mention the ginger, but stopped when he realised the condottiere was peering into the darkness behind him. "Do not worry," someone said from the shaded perimeter of the camp. After a moment, two strangers emerged and entered the illuminated space. "We're unarmed," said one of them, grey-haired, the same voice they had just heard. "We're on our way to Dillinger. Troubled times such as these are best spent in the company of others, don't you think? Especially when their destination is the same." "And how can you be sure it is?" asked Ossian, who was crouching, his dagger already drawn behind his back. "We don't need companions," said Nerys. Erskine was silent. He was assessing the situation. The newcomers did not look threatening. First, they did indeed appear to be unarmed. Secondly, they looked rather sick, or weak at least. The grey-haired one was deathly pale and spoke in a very soft tone. The other, dark-haired and silent, slumped slightly and pressed his hand against his hip. A fresh wound, perhaps? The grey-haired man nodded at the sledge. "This man won't last a week," he said. "Fortunately, however, I am a medic. I have a refuge in Dillinger. If we hurry, perhaps I can help him." The wind shook the branches, igniting the fading fire. Erskine realised that Nerys and Ossian were waiting for his response. He considered. If the sergeant dies before they reach their destination, it will all be for naught. A sawbone would indeed be useful. He released his sword hilt, grunted, and nodded. "Do you have names?" By dawn, they were ready to go. Erskine shifted the ashes with his foot while observing the new comrades. The grey-haired one, Regis, wasn't lying. Although he himself was barely standing, he efficiently replaced the sergeant's bandages and prepared a compress for his wounds. Surprisingly, the other one, Detlaff, offered to pull the sledge. They moved onwards, and after a few steps, Detlaff paused, wincing in pain. Regis steadied him with an arm. Erskine adjusted his backpack and caught up with them. You look pretty worn out," he said. "Who put you in this condition?" The newcomers were silent. Detlaff glanced over his shoulder at the road behind as if he was expecting to see someone following. Erskine didn't press for an answer. Somehow, he was sure he no longer wished to know.